All right, we're diving into something pretty heavy today. We're going to take apart this dark but really critical idea, how the very words we use and the agreements we all make can literally build the architecture for systemic violence and suffering. Let's get into it.
So this is the big, haunting question at the heart of it all. It kind of reframes how you think about language, doesn't it? It's not just about communication anymore. It's about a blueprint for cruelty. How does something as abstract as a word, as a concept, turn into real, physical, institutionalized harm?
Well, like any structure, this one starts with a foundation. But this foundation is twisted. It's built on social consensus, a collective agreement. But in this case, that agreement isn't about creating peace or harmony. It's about making harm official.
And here's where that idea of consensus gets completely flipped on its head. The source material defines it as this terrifying, coordinated effort with just one single goal: to inflict pain. So we're not talking about a meeting of the minds for the greater good. We're talking about a collective, unified decision to allow and even encourage cruelty.
To really wrap your head around this kind of systemic violence, it actually helps to compare it to something we're more familiar with. Think about violence in the animal kingdom. It's usually instinctual, right? It's spontaneous. It's about survival. An animal that attacks another one fully expects a fight back. But this systemic violence we're talking about, it's a whole different beast. It's codified. It's written down in the rules. And this is absolutely crucial. It's designed specifically to punish anyone who tries to fight back, which makes the whole thing completely one-sided.
And because there's no way to retaliate, the system is free to create this uniquely awful kind of psychological torture. By taking away any chance of a fair fight, it traps the victim. It allows for this drawn-out, prolonged state of suffering that's just uniquely human and uniquely cruel.
Okay, so you have this foundation of consensus. How do you use that to actually build the frame and the walls of this structure? Well, that's where an abstract agreement turns into a very real institution, the state.
Now, this might be a concept you've heard before, but when you look at it through this particular lens, it gets a whole lot darker. The state basically formalizes that consensus for pain. It becomes the one and only legitimate entity that can carry out this approved violence. It turns a dark social agreement into official policy.
And here's the chilling result of that. The state doesn't just use violence itself, it gives a green light, a safe channel for individuals who already have sadistic desires. It lets them act on those impulses with zero personal risk, zero social backlash. It is, for all intents and purposes, cruelty with a license.
So what's the fuel for this psychopathic state? The source material breaks it down into three core drivers. First, just pure sadism, the simple desire to inflict pain. Second is envy, this need to destroy something in other people that you yourself have lost. And finally, there's what's called existential destruction, the goal of completely annihilating anyone who's defined as other.
Now, this whole architecture, it's not a static thing. It actually has an engine, a horrifyingly efficient one, that's designed to justify its own existence and just run forever. Let's break down how this self-perpetuating cycle actually works.
It's a devastatingly simple four-step loop. First, the system inflicts its state-sanctioned harm. Second, it just waits for the inevitable result. The victim, under all that pressure, starts to break down, to unravel. Third, and this part is so important, the system slaps new dehumanizing labels on the victim based on how they're reacting. So they're not just the original target anymore, now they're unstable or aggressive or uncooperative. And then finally, step 4, those new labels are used to justify even more harm. And the cycle just starts all over again.
And this quote just brings us right back to this central theme, doesn't it? It all comes back to language. The entire cycle is powered by words. The system is constantly inventing new labels, new categories, to blame the victim for their own destruction. It's a linguistic trap that makes sure the victim is always wrong and the system is always right. So that brings us to the final and maybe the most insidious part of this whole architecture. It's the wall that makes the entire prison completely invisible to anyone who isn't trapped inside it. This is where subjective reality is everything. To an outsider, someone who isn't being targeted by the system, all the suffering it causes might seem totally abstract, maybe even, as the source puts it, like a comedic blip. But for the person living inside that system, it is their entire universe of pain. It's an inescapable reality. The exact same event creates two completely different worlds. This really highlights the system's greatest offense:
our own perception. Its true power is in the fact that those who aren't being directly harmed can so easily dismiss it, or misunderstand it, or just not see this architecture of pain that's standing right there in front of them.
And all of that leaves us with one final, pretty unavoidable question. If these huge, cruel systems are built brick by brick with words, with labels and definitions and agreements, then it really forces us to look at our own language. What words are you using every single day that might be reinforcing one of these invisible walls, or maybe could be used to start tearing one down?